activity that helps sum up the experience of the class is mindful quilting, a mindful quilt. And I think we'll do this tomorrow. Actually, I don't know if we'll do this tomorrow, but
On Monday, I think.
Monday? We won't do it tomorrow, that's true. So the idea about a mindful quilt and the activity, it's done in silence. And every participant gets a little sheet of paper and is allowed to draw his or her experience of the class. What resonated with him or her most, and how can they illustrate that on paper? And so all of the materials are provided, they can spread out on the floor, they can just have some space, and it's just a quiet time for them to do this. And so here's a mindful quilt from Madison, Wisconsin, 5th graders. And you see that, that each of the squares are kind of put together, and it creates a quilt of all of their different experiences and visual representation of their experiences. So here you see a lot of peace and love and connection to the earth, hearts. So we did this with Trish when she was here, and it really was pretty powerful, very nice. Here's a picture that it was a 5th grade student, and his representation was of Stress Island and how he could manage Stress Island by noticing sensations and thoughts, breathing and being kind. And that's how he managed things. And finally, we have the closing practice. And the closing practice can take some time, so you really want to be thoughtful about how much time you give that, especially if you have a large class. You're going to want to have some time. And the closing circle is an opportunity to practice both mindful speaking and mindful listening. And what's done in this closing circle is we get into a big circle, and everyone is allowed to put their square into a quilt in the center of the circle and make a comment about what their experience of the group was like. And it's done in a way that you as the facilitator communicate a mindful communication, which means speaking from the heart, speaking authentically, and being present as you're doing that, and listening mindfully with all of the others, just being there and really trying to pay full attention to what that person's experience was. And then there are some tips to take away that can be added. This is something that can be given to students as they read. So what are some things that students have said about this class? What do we know? What are their experiences like? So I'm going to put up a couple of these that just illustrate how they resonate with the different themes problems with the tension and how they've been able to use and focus their attention, how they become more aware of their body, how their body is on autopilot, how their mind is just wandering. So they learn about emotional and behavior regulation. Other than screaming and hitting, it's pretty good. And how they change in perception of self and in nature of thought. You got a crazy mind. So does everybody else. And they comment about compassion and about empowerment and inner strength. The E, remember, of breathe is empowerment. It's everything. It's about taking that inner strength and pulling all of these things together. And that's the end. Except for questions and a closing activity. So, what general questions do you have? Rachel's going to field all of your questions.
Oh, dozens of questions. And so questions about what it's like as a participant, questions to prepare you for tomorrow when you'll be leading these practices yourselves, either about individual practices or what that might be like. Any questions that you have kind of after today that you think would be helpful before we move forward?
So I remember you suggesting to print these, but will there come, like when we meet centrally the group, will we have them here with everything?
That's a good question, and you know what, we can, help me, if you want to write this down, have to help me remember. We can print out the current version that we use of a like in-class manual, and can bring that along so you can take some notes on it.
Let's do this. Why don't we do this now? And the way that it's structured tomorrow, right now. Meaning, we're going to have, the way that tomorrow is going to work is that there's a presentation of the activity and a demonstration of the activity. And then we're going to have you be in two separate groups and you're going to practice. And tomorrow there are two B's, two R's, and an E. So B is broken up into two segments. And so we want to make sure that each of you gets practice time. And I think what we can do is just break up now and then maybe assign for tomorrow. And that way, if you want to look ahead at those activities, you can look at those activities. Does that make sense? Would that be helpful? Okay.
Yeah, because that was actually one of my main questions that you got at earlier and a little bit now too, in terms of like fidelity to the program. Is it essentially like, would you recommend almost kind of like memorizing what they're saying? You said something about hitting like the the spirit of the points, and then obviously the activities aren't gonna change, but, you don't have to get the exact, like, phrasing.
No, so the scripts are written in Tricia's words.
Although what we'll give you tomorrow is also kind of our modification of what it may be helpful for you to answer this question, to compare the printed manual with our kind of shorthand to be used in session version, and you'll see the same themes represented, slightly different words based on some practice that we did. There's also part of the practice is learning how to use the manuals in a way that it's fine to have it with you in class, but ways to learn how to reference it that doesn't feel like you're reading from a script, that doesn't feel like you're disconnected from the participants, but that you're also making sure to check in. Did you hit all the themes? Did you ask all the questions? So it's there as a real resource in the moment, but does not need to be a verbatim of a script. We're just gonna- Are there other questions we should talk about before maybe we split up? Okay, and all 6 of you will be here Friday and Monday? Okay, so maybe we'll split up Friday today, and then tomorrow
Yeah.
we can split up Monday.
Yeah, it's better to not think about Monday until
Until after.
you do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be present focused. And so I know some of you know each other better than others, but it might be useful to, I mean, there are only 3 people in a group, so, but to be with others that maybe you don't know quite as well. So I don't know exactly what that means for you all. I guess if we just split down the table, does that seem like a reasonable thing? So you guys are, so, let's see.
And then the way that it will work is that one of you will be responsible for B1 and you'll lead.
Well,
So-
Doug, I think they're individual, there's more than one practice in each segment.
There is, and we could do it that way.
Okay, I think we would get, because if there are only 2, but there are 3 people in a group, if we split up each segment, one person wouldn't get an opportunity to lead. So I think we,
To lead at something in the B, but they'll
Yeah.
lead to in another one. Okay.
I thought that's what we had done with this by practice, but,
That's fine.
okay. So I have not the best handwriting, but there are 4 B practices that we'll practice. And so, in each group, and so maybe what we could also do, maybe it would be faster if I list up the B, R, and E that we'll do tomorrow, and then you can kind of take a minute and come up and sign up, so that way.
Well, why
we can
don't they
talk a
not
little bit
sign
later.
up? Why don't we just count off?
Oh, you want to do that, okay?
No, I don't know. So, I think it just makes sense, because I don't know that you're gonna be able to know, well, I really wanna do this one.
Sure.
Yeah. Right, so, I think you can just say, I'm number 1, number 2, number 3 in this group, and we can just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1,
Okay,
2, 3 for that.
so I will. Sure. And how far did we get?
We get the first one,
And that, what is that covered, do you remember?
that will cover emotion and react. Oh, no, sorry, I'm in the wrong one.
Take a picture. 29. Wait, you can't see with your glasses.
No, I can't, but for you.
Oh, thank you. I can see.
Sorry, I'll have E up in just a moment.
Chris, may I have the glasses?
segment one.
through a motion and 3 acts, I think. Oh, well, that will be nice. All right,
Oh, good.
so
Works out
3
great.
each. So if you have some time and want the manuals that I was talking about, that we designed to kind of use in session, you can come back to the office and lab and we can print some copies of those off now. Otherwise, can bring them tomorrow morning, whatever, either one is fine, whatever you prefer. But we will use this for our small groups.
What does that say?
Which one? I was gonna say, it's always a fair question when it involves my handwriting. So, now that you have a sense of what you'll be leading tomorrow, does that bring up any new questions? And the purpose of tomorrow is not evaluation of you. There will be feedback that we'll provide. In the morning, Doug and I will each be in a group, and Tasha will kind of bounce from group to group. In the afternoon, Lauren will join us. On Monday, Stephanie Rayburn, who is the other graduate student who's led a lot of these, will join us also. The idea that you'll have 1 or 2 people will pretend to be participants, but then also we can provide some feedback and some guidance, and if you have questions, you can ask. But so it's clear that this is an opportunity to practice. So it's good to look things through, but hopefully you can have some comfort in the fact that it will be compassionate, the way that we discussed, and that it can be really helpful when you're first learning to facilitate to have this kind of guidance. And so that's the real purpose, is the practice.
Do you want us to also be doing like introductions and recaps at the beginning, or are we just doing the practices?
It's just these practices. So we'll do some more demo of some other things, but these are the key practices. Yeah,
Really quick, what's under E? It's a motion
in 3 acts.
3 acts.
Yes. So that's the one we talked about, like walking without eye contact, walking with eye contact, emotion charades. This was my emotion charade. That's not what emotions look like in general, but yeah.
And again, it's model, practice, discuss.
Yeah.
So when you're in your small groups, you'll go through each of these. And then we'll come back into the large group and discuss your experiences of that and what it was like for you and questions that you have.
And that can be a really helpful time to be thinking about questions or concerns you have about what responses participants can have, or questions they can ask, or that they often ask, kind of the things that tend to come out of those, or any other questions like that. Those are a good place for them. All right, are there no other burning questions? We can turn to a closing prayer.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I have one more.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
So in the event, like, when we're facilitating and we do have a group with trauma, would we learn about that in this, or would we need, like, additional training?
So there are some modifications that we'll discuss in the intent, like as we go through and do some demos. There's some modifications that we'll talk about. But I certainly think some additional training would be helpful. Now, I don't know what specific resources are available right now, but I think there's an increasing attention being paid to mindfulness in particularly vulnerable populations.
Yeah, there are. And this program was not originally designed with that in mind. So you have to be thoughtful about whether it's appropriate for that kind of application or not. And I would argue that it would be better to be more cautious about whether you're going to do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but it hasn't really been tested in those populations.
And I'll also say too, I think from our experience, the creator Trish Broderick is an excellent resource for questions like this too. I mean, you can always bring them to us and we may learn more and know more, but if you have questions about how appropriate the program is, but also specific modifications, like if you've decided to run it and you are more aware maybe of the specific types of trauma, or that she is a great resource to just, she has so much experience with us and it's created the program, so I would encourage you to keep that in mind as a resource.
So this might be more relevant to like suggest while we're doing it, but the things that struck me about like, so having an interest in like trauma and mindfulness, like closing eyes. A lot of people with trauma like don't want to close their eyes and sit with those feelings, and so like inviting them to like either close their eyes or keep their eyes on like one part on the ground with their eyes open, and also laying down. Some people who have been through trauma can't lay down, and so I don't know if it would be okay to say like I would invite you to like when you do the body scan or whichever it was, to lay down or find a comfortable seat on the ground. Just to if you are aware of your stuff.
And so we talked a little bit about that with the body scan earlier, and talk more about some of those. Those are excellent modifications to keep in mind, and ones that it never hurts. Because often you'll have no idea about the trauma status of people who are in your groups, and that there's no harm in offering those options to people, to all people, but just can be more thoughtful about it if you are aware that there are some people, or maybe everyone in the group who's experienced some trauma. You ready?
No.
Okay. No. Who would like copies today? Ready? Do you have?
I started clearing fees,
Okay.
so.
Okay, great.
You need them today? Okay,
For maybe B, R, at least B and R.
Okay.
E, we're only doing a motion in 3X, so if we get E, great, but I think just B and R is fine.
I think we can do that.
I don't think I printed it out. I didn't. I was gonna do just like me, but I didn't print it. I didn't print it out.
Which one? I've got Yeah. So,
You were just almost dominating. Who?
we did
She's talking about the American.
Oh.
And like, yeah, the US just always dominates. The women's team is just amazing. 15-0 Thailand, yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do a person just like me. So this is one of our compassion trainings, and so I invite you again to sit comfortably, feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. You can gaze softly in front of you if not. And now, as I read this, I invite you to experience each statement as if it were written for you. Bring to mind a person in your life. It could be a friend, a relative, a neighbor, even someone you don't know very well. It could be someone in this group or outside it. Maybe a person who has had or is having a hard time. If your mind wanders from this person as we go, gently but firmly bring your attention back to that person. Now I invite you to consider that this person is a human being, just like me. This person has a body and mind, just like me. This person has, at some point, been sad, disappointed, angry, hurt, or confused, just like me. This person wishes to be free from pain and unhappiness, just like me. This person wishes to be safe, healthy, and loved, just like me. This person wishes to be happy, just like me. Now, let's allow some wishes to arise. I wish for this person to have the strength, resources, and support to help him or her through the difficult times of life. I wish for this person to be free from pain and unhappiness. I wish for this person to be strong and balanced. I wish for this person to be peaceful, because this person is a fellow human being, just like me. Thank you, Rachel.
Well, thank you all for a great first day. And we'll start at 9 tomorrow with our, well, with an open practice, but then some of these demos, small groups, and discussion. And so Tasha's printing for 18A is the lab number. If you want to head over there, we can get you copies. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If I can get my community coach because we're so.
You need to do that, and that should be
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yes.
And it'll be me, but they last like it was something with the.
I feel like that's how it has been the last couple of days. I feel like I've been on the switch, really.
So 1 o'clock.
So maybe I'll come at once.
Yeah.
Is that
And then
okay?
you just remind us tomorrow, we'll probably.
We'll just split up. That do ones that are
Instead of
take
an
place and then the second half.
Yes.
That's perfect, okay.
And
And
then
some
somebody-
chance
kind of like
that they
her
cancel, but if I can get them in.
my whole setup.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that's
Right now, it's just important.
Yeah.
You know,
There'll
that
be,
follow-up calls and
there'll be opportunities for more
doing
practice.
cold calls.
Yeah.
Well, I was supposed to do chart
Okay.
review
And you're
today,
not
so
gonna do
I
any
can't
practice.
come here.
You're not gonna get to do that.
There's not gonna be.
Right.
Emily
Okay,
wasn't
that's
here.
good. I think that worked, I'll tell you the same answer. She's like, yeah, just come in.
Oh, you should
There were some.
And then
Yeah.
you should, like, that's.
There's,
that's-
yeah,
Like
That's all it is.
yesterday, but
okay.
I didn't realize that you were gonna be in this training and I scheduled you for calls.
Yeah, that's
Um,
okay.
okay.
So I'm going home to recruit until
Okay.
6.
Okay, yeah, perfect, okay.
We're gonna need to call before now.
No, there were 2 CSDs, but 1 at 5:30, and the other one was like anytime, so, yeah.
And I sent you a email back about texting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, okay, so I'll just send that over.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I can still That, there's so many, like, there's no other, there's just an online way that I could set that.
We're working on that.
From like different,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like a good word.
Chilling.
Other people.
Well, it's hard because I think most of us prefer remote, so it's like, we either have to ask somebody or like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use them for the
Yes.
group today.
Yeah.
I had a lot of surprises, calls, like people who were actually interested, and I was like,
Nice.
I wasn't expecting this.
I'm hoping.
That's cool fun. I mean, I've only been in it for 2, but like even the first one, like I feel like I just walked in here.
Yes.
Like seriously.
I was thinking that too, like,
Is Sam a big event, or is that Sam Keith? Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
That's not.
I'm not with it.
It's okay,
Just leave.
I hope so too. Today's for rest.
Okay.
And maybe looking over, oh, ATK is where Tasha's at.
It's not in the manual. So I'll go through
You guys walking
and
over to.
print.
Yeah.
But I think I put my copy of what Tasha is. She can send it to you electronically. And I can look at it, because I don't want to, I'd like to model what they're doing rather than.
Yeah, and so I will also maybe